this up so I can let people in. I have allowed the team leads who are sharing, you've got the ability to share your screen. So thank you all for coming in. Once again, it's at 9:46. I'm Lori McEwen, a coach from ALP, Advanced Learning Partnerships, joined here today by the magnificent Craig Bennett, coach from ALP as well. We've got 3 great stories to hear this morning. What we're going to do is have team leads with maybe a partner or two share an overview of a story. Craig and I will kindly nudge them on time to make sure that we stay in the 5-6 minute range. We'll get a nice overview. You can pose questions in the chat, particularly clarifying questions, and then we'll get into those probing questions and dialogue as we move along. So you're letting us know who you are, if you're from one of the presenting teams, or if you're a visitor, and we welcome everyone. Craig, did I miss anything?
Lori, I'm just going to start a timer so we can keep it fair and even. And once you hear that beep, that'll be your cut, your virtual kick, if you will.
Oh, you are good. Now, are you giving a kick in the pants when it's done and they've just got to shut their mouths and zip it up? Or are you giving a kick where they can like wind down?
Yeah, we'll do a 5-minute. You'll hear it beep, and then you'll know. You'll just wrap it up from there. But I think we'll be okay.
Woo! That's right, Julie. Intense. We're going. Here we go. I'm still letting people in. John Grigori from Henrico. Throw your slides up, throw them in the chat, whatever you need, and you just get going.
All right, Lori, thank you. I'm going to attempt to share my screen and make this work. So are you guys seeing a beautiful slide that's entitled Journey Towards Life Ready Framework? We are. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's really great to be here and to encapsulate the last year's journey, being part of this cohort, and then all the things that have happened in the world in 4 or 5 minutes is a challenge, but I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot. So here we go. All good storytelling needs to have a title, and so ours is really telling the story of this journey towards, and we haven't reached the destination yet, but a journey towards a life-ready framework, and I wanted to unpack that with the group a little bit. So all stories need a backstory. So before we jumped into VaLIN, our backstory was here in Henrico, we took the profile of a Virginia graduate, very inspired by that, and of course the 5 C's, Virginia's 5 C's, and created a local profile, and we call it the Henrico Learner Profile. So really it's highly aligned to what the state was putting out at the time, and I feel like Henrico was a leader in this work in this area as well. We're really proud of it. And our profile encapsulates this learner profile plus a learning model, and I'll unpack that a little bit in a moment. We sort of branded that as being life ready. So what do our students need to be life ready? And of course, all of that connects back and is fully aligned to what Virginia's put out in its profile. So when we say life ready in Henrico, what does that exactly mean? Our definition is life ready represents the knowledge, skills, and attributes we believe every child needs for future success. And sometimes even that needs to be unpacked a little bit more. So just for the audience, again, finishing out the backstory here, how we describe that and unpack that a little bit is to use this sort of analogy of heads, hands, and hearts. So knowledge for us is the understanding of the academic and technical information, so our curriculum and what we're learning through the standards. Our skills are similar to the 5 C's that the state has put forth. Communicator, collaboration, critical thinker, and creative thinker. And then the attributes, that's that heart part. We're really focusing on character and citizenship. And that also connects back to what the state is putting out. So we're really excited about where we were and kind of where we were heading. And our big vision about this time last year was this life ready journey, this game of life ready, where we have students for 13 years, pre-K to 12, and the journey that they have, all the touch points and all the supports that we can provide for them to become life ready when they leave Henrico. And we were really excited. We had this vision for our students. And then of course, in this game, this card got played. We got, landed on wild, and we ended up with the situation around COVID. And that really kind of put a pause on some of our plans, but in some ways it really accelerated our ability to do some things. So because of COVID and what was happening, we realized we really needed a life raft for virtual learning for our teachers. We have a vision for what we want our students to be able to accomplish and the outcomes for them, but we didn't fully have it articulated in the virtual world for our teachers. So that life raft became a collection of all the different inputs that we had, the best practices in our division. So think social emotional learning, ultra critical, as talked about this morning. Culturally responsive education model, deeper learning, all these things came together in the emergency state. We just hadn't been able to put them together in the same way prior to that to create something that we call the Practitioner's Guide to Design and Delivery of Deeper Learning. Its initial thrust was about supporting virtual, but really has legs in just best practice. And Lori, you recognize this because we spent an extensive amount of time working on this together. This really helped our teachers understand how they can design and deliver to help our students reach those outcomes set forth by the state and then our Henrico learner profile. And you just get a little bit of a glimpse of it here. It was bringing together all those elements into one unifying document, this practitioner's guide. Beyond just sort of a checklist, and as teachers were working, we actually had additional support. So we expanded this document to have components, elements, and even questions that school leaders and teachers could use to develop and have conversations about what they were doing in virtual. But again, this goes beyond just virtual teaching and learning. It really was best practices. So where does this next part of the story go? So that was all kind of this last year's journey in support with support from VaLIN and Lori, Julie, our coach, and our entire division in Henrico. But our next chapter is what we're really excited about. For us, the Practitioner's Guide, the document that I just showed you and the work that we have there, has really created one fundamental of these 4 layers that we're looking to put together into what we're going to be calling our Life Ready framework, which we're very excited about, and we're starting to align some elements. So that practitioner guide really is providing and leading into a really robust instructional framework. We have been working on for several years a supportive curriculum to Life Ready, and that's going to really fill in this future curriculum for us. Because of the pandemic, we had to rethink how we did professional learning, and we created a platform called HCPSU, so Henrico County Public Schools University, and that's this kind of next generation of professional learning for us. And then out of the Practitioner's Guide, we've developed some look-fors for our leaders and teachers to focus on strength-based coaching and supporting our teachers to be highly effective teachers. That's our Life Ready look-fors, and that's really focusing on teacher evaluation. When we put all those together, that's going to culminate in the near future and something that will, of course, will always be evolving, what we're calling the Life Ready framework of bringing everything together, creating coherence in our division with all our stakeholders. And we're just really excited about the work. We're very thankful for the time and the support that the VaLIN cohort has provided, our local cohort, to be able to get to where we're at. And we in Henrico have really taken to heart Ted's words from one of our earlier sessions that we don't want this to be the lost year. We want this to be a found year. And we're really taking advantage of that and taking that to heart. And we're excited about the future of our Life Ready framework. So hopefully I stayed within the time, and Lori, thanks for the opportunity. We're really excited. And of course, we can talk a little bit more about clarifying questions as we go on, but I want to continue the presentation on to the rest of our partners.
Awesome. John, great job. Craig, thank you for keeping us honest. You know, we just heard a lot. So we're going to take like 30 seconds of your own time to just, if there are just notes and wonderings that you have before we pull up Fairfax and have you go in, you just take your own deep breath and think about, you know, what's resonating for you. I did not use a timer. I'm hoping that was 30 seconds. I was running sprints this morning, and it's amazing how long 30 seconds can be when you're sprinting. So I'm not sure I got that quite right. I'm going to let Andrea hand. I think you've got the slides. So we're going to be moving to Fairfax. You had the challenge laid out in front before you with John. Keep into time. And I know you've got a really great presentation here. And we don't want to rush you through it. We've got some good time, but we appreciate you staying within this framework so we can ask some meaty questions as we go forward. So Andrea, take it away.
Awesome. Can everybody see my screen okay? Just want to double check that. All right, perfect. Well, thank you for having us. And I'm here on behalf of our awesome team. And John, I will name as you shared. I certainly was making a lot of connections. Our team actually is moving to creating a video for our artifact in June, but it's kind of funny because that actually made us think about sometimes when we have to pause and distill our thinking, it's really that opportunity to reflect, right? Which is another catalyst of learning and growing. So I just want to share that this process in and of itself has been helpful as well. So while we are sharing today and creating a video, yes, truly the bigger challenge is within our division, we've been striving to ensure that all students have continuous growth in Portrait of a Graduate attributes. We do believe these to be the enablers of lifelong success. And sort of to unpack, one of the ways that we think about success is sometimes we think it's linear, and in reality, it's not, right? We fail forward and we fail, and sometimes just realize we have to abandon certain ideas. But I think an important encapsulation in this that I have a connection to innovation is that all in all, it trends upward, right? And that the arrow implies it's not a destination, but truly it is a journey, because the world around us, pandemic or not, continues to evolve rapidly. And our goal is to prepare our students for that world. So really, the formalization of our journey began in 2014, when as a division, we adopted our own Portrait of a Graduate. So we have these 5 attributes, underneath which we have distinct skills by grade level band for our students. So if this is what we want students to become or grow throughout their experience in FCPS, in 2016, we really realized that we had to adopt a learning model that put those attributes and skills at the center. So this is our learning model right here, and you'll notice that it really prioritizes the practices or instructional approaches where students have the opportunity to apply POG skills to real world problems. So you'll notice the tenets being learner-centeredness, concept-based curriculum, meaningful learning experiences, and purposeful assessment, which we really define as balanced assessment and student voice and participation as an advocate and owner within their own learning in that process. So if this was sort of the what and the how through everyday ongoing instruction, in 2019, we really started to think about, well, how will we know? How will we know when we've made significant and ongoing progress towards this outcome? So we really then zoomed in on assessment as the guarantor for equity and access, opportunity, and outcomes for students. So it's a driver for instruction. I think Dr. Lane earlier said, like, what we inspect is what we expect, right? So that's where we sort of said, okay, we really do have to think about this not just as an opportunity that teachers and schools would provide wherein they believe in this work, but assessment then driving what is provided for all, focusing on that. So we have a division strategic plan that formalized essentially a goal for POG outcomes for students through an ongoing summative assessment at benchmark years across K-12 through Portrait of a Graduate presentations of learning. These POG polls, as their acronym has them sound, right, are really a student-led portfolio defense presentation. So really then over time, students curate evidence of progress in growth of these attributes and skills. And at particular benchmark years, they do a presentation of learning, which can take place in a variety of formats that is scored on a rubric. This is really where our VaLIN team was in March of 2020. And we were really excited to say, like, how do we ensure the growth and the implementation of this assessment is scaled across our division, you know, in a way that we really felt was in service of our students of today, not having that really long journey towards that, because we are a division of approximately 190,000 students. So in acknowledging that innovation takes time, we were also thinking about leveraging our influence both as school-based leaders and as central office leaders to promote progress towards that. So I mentioned March 2020, because if this is what success looks like generally, we kind of have this aha, right? That things get even harder when you introduce a lot of rapid change and variables. So this third lane was where we were living in, not just in terms of assessment, but what does high quality instruction look like really in the context of teaching and learning has changed at its core in and of itself, which then requires change at all leadership levels, in instruction by teachers, and in students' skills and abilities to respond to those changes as well. So that's where really we had to explore the question of what does POG focused learning look like within different environments and conditions. And while I think that our learning model, I would argue reality is it doesn't matter what context teaching and learning takes place in, we do believe these are the tenets. It does have to manifest itself a little bit differently in virtual and concurrent instruction. And recognizing virtual and concurrent instruction, or the amount of change that required, isn't unique to this moment or this pandemic. In some ways, education has been behind, right, what application of knowledge and skills looks like in the real world overarchingly. So with that in mind, we did have to come back to thinking about how to apply this learning model for us in VaLIN as school-based leaders, as central office leaders, but it really was, how can we promote high quality instruction in the context in which we're living in today, recognizing the agility that is required right now is likely to endure into the future in a lot of ways. So some things that we learned is POG attributes were really drivers of success for all of us as human beings, not just students. And I think John mentioned this too, this idea that, you know, really this time was an accelerator in terms of the use of technology by staff and by students, and that we can build on that. And that is actually more representative of tools that students would have in the real world anyway. While we've gleaned lots of, I'm not gonna go over these, you have them at your fingertips. I think we've gleaned lots of small lessons, right? But really it does coalesce into that idea of like, at the school-based level and at the division level, how do we agilely think about instruction and continuing to keep POG at the center of our work, recognizing the reality is those are what are going to serve our students for lifelong success. Our immediate next steps is we really do recognize we want to return to assessment as that driver of instruction. So that is something we are really focused in on, and that we are thinking about the high quality instruction, both at the policy or division level, curriculum, division assessment program, as well as, you know, learning with and from our schools. And then we are hopeful to continue this work with VaLIN. I put 2.5, I didn't know it was called 3.0, but just, you know, the idea that like we all do better when we all do better, and we all know better when we connect with one another. So we're hopeful to continue to benefit from the thinking of others as well.
Well done. Well done, Andrea. I had a chance to see those slides before this, and they're jam-packed with great visuals, great work. Thanks for doing that so quickly and building off of John. And I think we're going to see from Richmond City probably some continuing themes. I've seen a little bit in the chat. Again, let's take those 30 seconds to make notes about what resonates with us, what we're thinking about after hearing both of these presentations so far. Did put a link to the Fairfax slides, and yet thanks, Jeff, for the visuals. We'll do 30 seconds and then we'll come back and we'll hear from Richmond. I used a timer this time. Thank you. We've got some notes, and I see some notes in the chat too. Fairfax, I did share your slides. I hope that is okay. If not, I can't steal them back. And John, we had a request. I don't know if yours are public or not, so that is up to you. If Henrico, okay, if you want to throw those in the chat, I'd appreciate it. That's great. And we are on to our third team. Can't wait to hear from you guys in Richmond City. So thank you very much. You are on.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shantae Wright, and I'm one of the instructional innovation managers for Richmond Public Schools. We have a few of our other team members on with us, Dr. Autumn Neighbors, who is the director of instruction. We also have Mr. DeVell Smith, who is the assistant principal of STEM at MLK, and Mr. Josh Behrman, who is our instructional specialist for science. And my co-presenter for today, Dr. Cindy Robinson, who's also one of our instructional innovators. And so our process is we documented our story through this site that we're going to walk you guys through today called Innovate RPS. And so we use this as a space to store all of our experiences and to capture our story. And so we just start with the introduction page with our district leaders there, and just to have a platform to store all of the experiences and the learning that we've done through this process. Dr. Wright.
Okay, so on our Sparking Innovation tab, we wanted to surface for you guys the importance that we really focused on as a team. And the first is finding a way to scale this work so that it's not something that we do one time, but something that we could repeat over time. And what we came up with were two artifacts. The first, as Dr. Wright is sharing with you now, is our Passion for Learning multi-year plan. And this plan highlights how we intend to do that across all of our secondary schools and building these theme-based programs at every school that really tap into students' passions for learning. And so to frame that work, we developed our very own framework. So if you scroll down, the next portion of this Sparking Innovation section of our site surfaces for you our framework that we call DREAMS. DREAMS is an acronym that covers the 6 phases that we believe help us to scale innovation work in our district. And I should also add that our framework is based on research and the information that we've provided in this particular VaLIN experience. So we're very excited and very proud of this work. And DREAMS stands for Discover, Research, Engage, Apply, Manage, and Succeed. And through these 6 phases, we hope to be able to support our schools and different programs through the innovation process.
And so we, again, developed this in connection with the experiences that we learned from VaLIN and some of the partnering network schools that we were able to work with, in addition to our coach, Julie. And so we right now have 2 playlists of some of the programs and the works that we have done. The first one is our STEM Academies that we launched this year. Yes, we intended to launch those face-to-face, and because of COVID, you know, it looks different, but we were able to still innovate in this virtual world. And so our 2 schools where we launched these STEM academies were Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School and Henderson Middle School. And we have some of those leaders on the call with us today. So we started off with our staff having some kickoff professional development. We also had opportunities gearing students up, getting them excited for the program with our STEMtastic Tuesdays, where we had some of our community partners, district leaders, and educators create STEM challenges for students to do at home virtually over the summer. Then we also had our STEM academies to get students excited as well to create their own commercials for their academies to kind of showcase what student experiences would be like and what students would be learning, even in this virtual environment. We've added on to support our Governor STEM Academy, which is our secondary STEM Academy as well. And we highlighted some of the programs that they have available And through this work, we have been afforded the opportunity to receive the VDOE K-12 Innovation and Planning Grant that awarded us $50,000 to extend enrichment STEM opportunities for students in an extended day learning environment. We also were able to acquire VDOE Robotics Competition Grant, where we are starting robotics in our elementary schools that are feeding into these two STEM academies to help get students excited at an earlier age about STEM. Most recently, we were also awarded 2 additional grants for our STEM academies. Both of these are awarded to MLK, to help expand STEM opportunities for students at the schools as well. And then our other playlist, this one we're really excited about, is our VaLIN playlist. And right now we have just our spotlight that we were able to engage with the VaLIN podcast. And we have that linked on there and the experience that we had working with our coach, Julie, in doing that podcast as well. And then our last opportunity.
The last opportunity that we're presently working on is called Project Plugged In. And this is a relatively new experience, but we're super excited about it. We wanted to find a way to not just build model sites and programs across our schools, but to really be able to impact teacher capacity. And so Project Plugged In leverages the awesome work of Jim Knight and researchers like him as it relates to utilizing instructional coaching models and, yes, video observations to really get into the classroom. And our hope with this is to build a culture that celebrates innovation, celebrates the courage and the willingness to share, and to continuously grow. And so those are our new and exciting projects, and we're happy to be able to have this opportunity to share them with you. I did drop the link to our site in the chat, and so hopefully you'll be able to peruse it and let us know if you have any questions, ideas. We love thought partners, so thank you.
Great job, you guys. All 3 teams, I think, hit the essential pieces and did it in time. So we can do our claps however we want. Take another, 30 seconds or so. We'll go quiet. We'll just think about what's resonating for us. And then we'll start using the chat and perhaps jumping in depending on how many folks, but starting with the chat for some common questions. So take a little bit of time to think about what you want to ask these folks. All right, and I'm just putting slides in the decks and the resources that were shared today. I've put those in again so that you have them. Craig, I don't know if you've got a question that you're bursting to ask. Otherwise, we'll go straight to the chat and see what we have for some folks' questions. I know I have a couple, but love to hear from all of you.
Yeah, I just want to hear from the room.
All right. So here's the time. You can unmute, ask a question, or throw it in the chat.
Hello, I have a question for Henrico. With your learning experience design checklist and the learning experience delivery checklist, are you guys using that in your PLCs to help with the planning process and doing observations?
Yeah, great question. We certainly are with 72 and growing number of schools. We work through our school leadership to, kind of pass that element down. And so every school, of course, is going to take their own approach. Early on, PLC was difficult when we were at distance, but we, again, the accelerator of learning how to use the technology allowed for that to even continue. So groups of teachers working together virtually. And out of our school leaders using these in the school, and really a demand back up from our school leadership, can you help us do some observational data collecting off of this tool? That's where we started to say, hey, we have a system of observations that does not right now focus on these same elements that we're putting forth that are our best practices. So generically, an observation form might be all of the professional standards for a teacher. So you're talking about every single thing that a teacher's supposed to do, you know, in the course of a year and demonstrate growth on it over a course of 3 years. And that was a very difficult observation. So we have created, and in this current year, we have sort of we're piloting with our principals an observation tool that more mirrors and matches our practitioner's guide for design and delivery, so that we are now collecting observational data on the things that we are asking our teachers to design and deliver in that method. And with the goal, part of this Life Ready framework for next year is that our Talent Perform platform that does all of our observational data and collects that will be able to mirror that as well. So we're in a bit of a transitional year while we still have some existing traditional observational forms out there. We're piloting and trying and really using this as a learn quick, fail, figure things out, so we can come next year again as part of that Life Ready framework of having a fully aligned observation tool to what we're asking our teachers to design and deliver. So we're really excited about it. And maybe part of Cohort 3.0, we can share some more of that if we're lucky enough to be part of it.
Thanks, John. I think that, you know, that cohesiveness, that alignment that we're hearing, and we've heard from all three of yours, is really interesting. And it goes to a question in the chat we have from Amos to Richmond. Amos writes in there, I think you can see it, your theory of action is designed for scale. And he's asking, Amos, you're right here, you can ask it yourself, but it's about what barriers did you successfully overcome to secure co-authorship across multiple departments and school leaders, and what barriers remain? And that is probably a question that we'd like to hear from all of our panelists. We have these wonderful, big, innovative ideas that are scary and threatening to some folks, that are counter to some philosophies, that are moving faster or slower than some would like. How do we go about, as Amos asks, about securing co-authorship? And I like that better than buy-in, Amos, but love to hear from you. Why don't we start with Richmond, since the question was asked there? And if I'm not framing it right, Amos, I invite you to reframe it for me.
No, that's what I'm looking for. Thanks for the reactions.
So maybe I'll jump in and invite Dr. Wright and any of our awesome RPS folks on the call to weigh in as well. I would say that it is a continual process and a challenge that we work through, that we're still working through, because you're right. I think the readiness for innovation and change is different across different school cultures and climates. And so one of the things that we kind of talked about in some of our podcast conversation capturing this work was this idea that, you know what, we may not all feel ready, but we can celebrate what has been done. And through that celebration, we gain excitement and we grow that passion to at least dip your big toe in the water and try it out. And then the second piece is that framework is really has really helped, because I think the more that we were able to build out the framework, which is still growing, it gives people foundation and something to anchor in. So even if they are a little nervous about what the exciting things we want to try, they can go back and say, okay, I understand there's a framework for this. There is a plan. It is still obscure and still non-linear, but I have a frame that I can hold on to. So.
And Cindy, if I could add to that, the framework is important, and thank you both for representing the good work that is happening here in Richmond. I just want to add another element to that. And I don't know if it completely answers Amos, like, I don't know if we overcame this, but I think the challenge is, I always say innovation is really messy, right? That's why it's not linear. And you add COVID on top of it, it is super messy. But innovation, so foundation, because it's messy, foundation has to be relationships and trust. And I think that's something that has been challenging at times because we're all virtual and it's harder to build relationships over these screens. I'm not saying impossible, because I think we've done a darn good job as a network and to look at each other's faces on our Zoom calls and like really find creative ways to build relationships and build trust. That I think that's the thing, that the barriers still remain, is our not to be together. And I know that will be something that will help us moving forward to continue to build that trust and build those relationships so we feel safe in the messy process of innovation.
And I would just add the layer that, we were building the plane while we were flying it. And it was, as Autumn says, a messy process. However, we started off with a cross-functional team. And I think that really helped us because you don't know what you don't know. And so after we worked through a lot of, challenges and obstacles, we were able to reflect back on the work that we did and able to map out the process. And so, as Dr. Robinson already has shared, when we are working with new schools and new partnerships, we're able to share this framework and they feel comforted in knowing that there's a pathway. Like, I know what's coming next. I know the support that I'll have. I know what's expected of me and my team and who I will have as supports through this process. And so I think that the framework has helped people be welcome to change, because although it's still an unknown process, they feel like it's unknown, but I do know what steps I'm going to take. I do know who my support people are going to be. I do know, what the process is. And so this framework has really helped us, definitely when we're looking at scaling.
Thank you. Other questions for the team in the chat, or if you want to just, I'll look at John G with the hand. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, Lori, I would like to add in a little bit to Amos's question and try to provide a little bit of insight for us. So, what I heard was getting buy-in or the co-authorship. So for us in Henrico, when we came to VaLIN, we created a really diverse team in terms of departments. So we had a principal, a classroom teacher, specialists, directors, and so that really helped us in our work. But more holistically, I think in our division, what we are doing is just a practical tip, I guess, if we want to get down to that, is we've created a unified project plan template. And Amos would know the name Courtney Bostain, who is just this amazing big picture thinker. And she's really brought this organizational structure to a lot of our work beyond just the department that she works in and I work in. And part of this template is purposeful to create co-authorship it took a long time, but we literally found where everybody works in the division and what departments they lead up to. And we have that listed out on every project plan as part of the template. So when we go up and we're setting up an initial kind of that work streams, early on in the process, it's looking, how does this impact transportation? How does this impact food services? How does this impact our families? Which has really allowed us to bring other groups in early so that they feel and they are authentically part of the authoring of change and innovation in our division. And this has been a pretty recent change, and it has made such a difference. Just to tie a bow on it, we are working on a major initiative for next year that's on a rush. And just yesterday, we had a meeting where we had all of those departments come in, and the positive vibe and the feeling of thank you for including us here at % done number 1 instead of % done number 99, and you're just sort of showing us is helping us with that co-ownership and coherence. So there's a practical tip. Put them in your project plan, and we literally just check off groups, and it's really helped us.
Thanks, John. And we're going to go to Andrea in a minute, but as I put in the chat, and I see Kelsey is echoing me, you can't mention a fantastic project plan template and not think that people are going to be, either asking you for it or finding a way to hack into your system to get it. So you may want to think about how we can share that out if it's not proprietary, because project planning is not a skill that everybody in education or leadership has, and we could all use some help with that. And you're in a large division there, but then Fairfax, you're as I've said before, you have more students in Fairfax than I have in my entire state of Rhode Island, and so to think about co-authorship among around a division that size, and support and levels of communication. I don't know if that's what you were going to. I'd love to hear about that, but start with where you were going, Andrea.
Well, I was thinking about how it's important to articulate what it is that you're trying to accomplish and make sure that stays the main thing. I feel like sometimes, as we move towards something big, it's like the plan becomes the thing, and then we forget that what we're really focused on is the goal. So I say that because we are super large, and I think that enters complexities and variables when you have so many different stakeholders. So one thing I think that we've made a lot of progress towards more recently in the past several years is our theory of action is aligned to our division strategic plan, which is aligned to our school SIP plans, with teacher smarter goals are aligned to those. So it's this idea, if something is a goal, then all of the sort of feeder goals that would allow for the collective progress are similarly aligned, because I think for us in a system so big, it's not about pockets of excellence. It's really about what steps can we take together to promote progress for all of our students. So that's just something that came to mind for me, is like, as we name, for example, our learning model, we adopted that 5 years ago. There's a ton of resources that feed under within that. But for example, I'm looking at Beatrice, who is a leader of our assessment work, and the leaders of our curriculum work are all entrenched in that as well. So while that's a goal for how instruction should look like in the classroom, our curriculum is representative of that. And our division assessment program similarly has that as a core tenet. And I'm going to invite like Beatrice or Cindy and Greg, our principals. Is there anything that you guys want to add? Because I think that in any division where people have diverse perspectives and roles, it's like inviting people to the table. I'm much more likely to contribute and see myself in it if I have a voice in that creative process, right?
So this is Greg. I'll jump in and share a little bit. First, I just want to say, it's really exciting to see, this year, I think we all started out with a certain plan in mind, based on what we had set up. And obviously the world changed around us, and just everybody really has demonstrated the skills we want our kids to demonstrate, right? Just by changing on a dime and recreating and being creative and finding new ways to do things. So it's great to see that no matter where you are, those kinds of things are happening. As Andrea said, one thing I've thought about, as a principal in a school, I think as we start to move the needle and change assessments and what we want students to learn and be able to do, one challenge I see as a part of that is sometimes outside of our system in terms of our parent community, is that, they know the game of school, and I'm in a pretty competitive school environment here where, as we begin to change what assessments look like, we begin to change, and, it's more about not the content itself, but how you can use the content in other ways to make other connections, is that sometimes our communities don't understand that piece and almost want to fight back because they know the game of school and worry that, wait a minute, is my kid really learning something? And we know a lot of the research is around actually they're learning more when they're able to make those connections outside of it. So that's just a piece of just maybe thinking as you were talking, is making sure that as we're doing this work, that we're actually engaging with our communities for them to have an understanding of why these changes need to happen. And every time I hear James Lane talk, it's great to hear that coming from the state level as well. So that's something that was making a connection with me as folks were talking today.
Hey, I'm going to go off of what Greg just said. I work in the same county and do a lot of staff development. I've been in Greg and Cindy's schools a ton of times, and it's not just parent mindset shifts. It's also some teacher mindset shifts. You always have your 20% teachers that'll dive in and do anything you want them to do. But how many teachers have also based their successes off of state SOL test and how well their kids do on that. And that's their source of, I know I'm good because of that. And now we're moving that goal, which changes their entire instructional practices. So it was something that came to mind whenever Dr. Lane was talking about this. We want to focus more on performance tasks. We want to focus more on project-based learning. And it also is going to take time for teachers to get good at that before they have confidence and feel better. Anyone who's done stuff like, project-based learning, you don't do it very well the first time. It takes a long time to get good at that. So do you have permission to just be okay at it for a little bit? And what's that balance point between those two things? Because only working with your top 20% teachers isn't going to be equitable for all students. And that's really important long range.
Greg and Jeff, I love the points that you're making about parents and teacher mindsets. And so a couple of things are coming to mind. One, have we, through VaLIN, cultivated a really rich set of resources? Obviously, Ted gives us a lot in his innovation playlist that we can share with teachers and with parents and with community members and our local legislators and school boards and those kinds of things, to help them see a mind shift. And the other thing that comes to mind is this Virginia Assessment Consortium and the work that we're doing in Fairfax. I know you're part of that, along with several others. This, we really want to show folks how different ways of doing things are as or more rigorous. And this idea of deep learning, I think, as he was talking about, rather than, just fun, but it can be both. And I think we've learned that while we've been building this plane, while flying it, it's been really hard, but we got it off the ground and we did some new and different things, and we pushed ourselves out of our comfort zones, because COVID didn't wait for us to be ready. We just had to get going. And, the same thing with our parents. How can we help them to sort of get ready and take their viewpoints in? So I'm glad you're thinking about that. Greg, when you've worked it all out, if you could let us know, just write up a little article about that and share it with us. We'd appreciate it. All right, I think we have, let's see, I'm looking in the chat. We got another message. Do we have more questions? Craig, any of the folks from the teams who want to jump in and add more that hasn't been added? I know we've got principals especially who've been involved in this, who've been trying to manage 101 things and be thoughtful and innovative. We'd love to hear from you in the next few minutes.
John's got his hand up.
Yeah, Lori, if it's okay, I would like to consult with some of my colleagues before sharing out the template, but I certainly can put it up on the screen and just do a really quick walkthrough to get a visualization of what we found some success. So if that's all right, I'll try a quick screen share here and see if we can make that happen. All right. So hopefully you're seeing my screen. And so here's our project plan template. And just a couple of things that just to articulate and expand on some of the successes. We kind of have an initial page that tells the big story and really connects who are the leads and directors and departments. Something else I'm really excited about is how we're connecting it back to life-ready outcomes, as we talked about, equity, and of course the work that the state is doing. But the part I was talking about that has really been effective for us was focusing and having this as a standard element of all of our projects, is having all of our stakeholders listed out. So we literally can come in and we highlight or we check. And so where there's not somebody who slips through the cracks early when we're having some major far-reaching project that's going to impact a lot of our stakeholders, anybody miss. So you can see that actually takes up a fair amount of real estate on here, but we really feel that's important. So that's just kind of a quick glimpse of how we work through our projects. And we have a guru who's amazing that kind of serves these all up for the website so leadership can go and understand where we're at. But in Amos's question brought in my mind, that has been something that is a practical thing, very doable, that has helped us a lot.
John, thank you so much. I don't know if people are trying to snap pictures as you went through. You mentioned Courtney, but your entire team also is really focused when there's a meeting the meeting is about the meeting. And, Courtney really runs through that project plan to make sure that the main thing stays the main thing, which I think might have been what Andrea was referencing. And so it is this blend, it's this management piece too. It's the innovation, it's the enthusiasm, it's the ideas and ideation, but it's also the management of this to move it forward. So I know lots of you on this call and who have presented today have those skills and have shared. We're going to see if we have any other questions. And then Craig, I think we're going to ask one of our faves that comes from the podcast, right?
Sure, we can do that.
I'll hand it to you then.
Well, we've had some fun with the podcast, and if you haven't had a chance, we've got about 4 or 5 now, maybe even 6 up, and we can drop that link in the chat. But the thing that we've been asking teams at the end of our conversations is just the prompt around I used to think and now I think. And, to kind of frame it around what we've talked about today, we've kind of talked about, and Amos is really good about calling attention to people that aren't in the room. And so I think about that right now. You might have somebody in mind that would want to hear this. So in the terms of innovation and someone that's not in this space, you used to think innovation was something and now you think something else. So we'll just open it up. You might want to drop it in the chat. We won't necessarily just open it up to just the people that presented today, but we'd definitely like to hear from those folks. But if you have I used to think, now I think, we'd love to see that in the chat. Kelsey, I'll call out Kelsey. If you have a chance to listen to that podcast from Pennsylvania, Kelsey took about 5 minutes of pause when she needed to answer that question. So it does take a little bit of time sometimes to get that thought out. Kelsey, thanks for jumping in this morning.
Oh my gosh. And I have to say, Kelsey, I loved you on the podcast and I didn't realize I've been like watching you in the chat and I did not make the connection today, but you were awesome.
The hot mess is right here.
Hey, Lori, if I can share just some words while I get this unique opportunity to be able to unmute and talk to a bunch of people. I said a little earlier, we really resonated with the words from Ted from the October or November meeting. And if anybody wasn't able to see that presentation when he was speaking directly to our cohort, it is on the What School Could Be website as a kind of a distilled version, but really powerful. So that this whole idea of don't miss our shot with all of the things that have happened in the past year. This whole idea of this is not the lost year, this is the found year. And for us, like kind of a mantra I've been going to that I think kind of goes a little bit to Craig's question is a lot of times we're presented with external projects from other departments that are looking for help. They're looking for innovation. And I think I used to have a mindset that was, okay, we have to do this. And the mindset shift for us now, and for me personally, is we get to do this. Like we have so much opportunity. Like people are coming to us because we have shown we can be innovative, we can put out great products. And when they come to us, it's not a burden, it's an opportunity. And I see that with this Life Ready framework and the work we're doing, those 4 big elements and some other big projects that we have coming our way. So for us, it has been very much so we get to do these things, and how blessed we are in Henrico and hopefully the other divisions, like we have an infrastructure in place, we have technology, we have the ability to support our learners who don't have internet, we can make those things happen. So we just have such a great opportunity. We're trying to seize that. And I mean, I'm looking forward to this afternoon to listen to Ted. I hopefully, he'll really package that in a much more eloquent way than what I'm saying, because he tends to do that. But that's really been our mindset shift this last year.
That is awesome. And I'm seeing so much in the chat around these shifts. But I do love that, not a burden, but an opportunity, something that we get to do. And reframing it that way is just, I'm just thinking about kids' faces as, they go through these whether it's your PogPols in Fairfax, these performance assessments, these new ways of being and learning, like we get to see kids sparked with joy. We get to see all of our kids feeling deeply connected to the work when we make these changes. And what could be, and our teachers, right? What could be better? What could be more exciting than, you know, going to work every day and coming back more energized than you went in the morning, right? VaLIN bracelet, small steps, big change.
Yeah.
Fairfax or Richmond, anything you want to share as you're closing it out? We had you go really fast through your opening slides, and we've had great dialogue and questions along the way. We've got a couple minutes left, so if there's anything that you want to sort of leave us with, you have to now, of course, because we're giving you the closing, it would have to be really
Have
brilliant.
to say something.
I want to ask, I feel like, you know, I represented Fairfax in terms of the slides, but we're a team. And I just want to invite, you know, we haven't heard from Cindy or Beatrice yet, particularly. I know Greg chimed in and Jeff chimed in, but is there anything you all really would, I know everyone would benefit from hearing your thoughts beyond
I
that.
think Cindy's ready to jump in. I saw, right?
I just, excuse me, I was just really inspired by the Richmond website. And so I've already, I'm going to a conference later, so I won't be in the breakout where we get to work as a group, but it just really sparked a lot of, we're such a huge division. And I was wondering, like in my head, like where have we captured our innovation because we're in such a huge division? And so I'm thinking what a great way to do that. And it could be a public facing site. Then we could be meeting the needs of getting it out to our parents and guardians, our community, our school board. So I'm just grateful that I got to see that. And thank you for sharing that really great product. And it's really sparked some thinking of how we could expand and get out what we're doing, because we are so large in a really concise way. So thank you.
I feel like Paula Abdul, we take 2 steps forwards and 3 steps back, I just dated myself with that, but I think it happens quite a bit in this work. You have great stuff going on. You have leadership so important. You have a principal that's really driving their teachers to get staff development and setting goals and having requirements for this work. And then that principal either goes into a different position or retires. And you're like, oh man, you lose all that progress. And it's just such an up the hill, down the hill thing that you're just trying to get people a little bit of time to make changes. Whenever we first started putting together Portrait of a Graduate, this is in 2014, Andrea was on the team with me. And this was just in a little room. And I remember saying, hey, this can be easy. It's gonna be like, 3 weeks to make up these skills, and then, a little bit of time to get teachers to do it. And that was in 2014. And we're just trying to make little strides and celebrate successes every bit of the way, but it's an exciting path to be on. And I know we enjoy our jobs every day, so that's a good thing.
Thank you. Anyone else from our presenting teams want to share a final thought?
I would just like to say, thank you to VaLIN, thank you to our coach, Julie, who really helped spark a lot of ideas and served as a thought partner for us through this process. Hopewell, who I don't think is in this group, but we got a lot of inspiration from them as well. And thank you to all the other districts in the network that have shared all the wonderful things that you guys are doing, because you helped us frame our process and think outside of our normal box. So we appreciate all of that.
I'll add one little piece towards the end too, is just, you see all the articles and everybody talking about this is the lost year for kids and them not learning. And I think it's, as we look at this and think about moving forward, I'm a little bit inspired by what has happened this year and the changes that have been made and what kids have gotten out of this experience, as well as our teachers, and how they had to shift and change and really look at what is essential for students to learn and what do we really want them to know and be able to do after this year rather than doing it the same way again. So I think there's going to be a lot of great things that come out of this experience in this year. Obviously a lot of bad things, but I think educationally, I'm excited about where we pull out of this and recognizing where we can go and what we can do in education. And I think it will be a catalyst for change, positive change in the future.
Greg, I think that's so true. I think Pam Moran was going to jump in because I know Pam is a fan of saying that, you know, how important this year has been, if we can do it now, right, Pam?
And I will tell you, Lori, that I truly believe, and I heard this from another group that was just presenting, that you can either look at a time of change as an opportunity to maintain status quo, or you can look at a time of change as a great time to change. And what I've seen from the VaLIN teams is that, yeah, maybe we were slowed down, maybe we were challenged. I'm sure we all were, but the reality is that VaLIN teams kept moving the ball down the field and thinking about how do we see this as not just a danger to what we're trying to accomplish as a school division, but a true opportunity. And so when Kelsey says, yeah, we slowed down, we didn't stop, that's what I really saw. And what people maybe came up with, because I do believe this time period caused us to drop some filters and some biases and to see the world of learning differently than we would have if we were just sustaining that same tunnel vision that we do from year to year to year, that it did kind of create some dissonance in our lives. And that dissonance is not a bad thing. I'm just excited. You guys inspire me. And I hope that you will consider how we keep the connections of VaLIN moving forward, including that some of you may decide that you would like to stay connected with VaLIN through 3.0. And hopefully we'll actually have some great face-to-face experiences, not just virtual this next year. Hats off to you guys that are coaches in the group. Lori, I heard Julie's name mentioned. So many of the connections that are made are happening because of you guys. Thank you, everyone that's here. And Annie, thanks for you being here too.
Thanks so much, Pam. Autumn, you've got your hand up. Folks, we're a little past time and your next session is 11. If people need to leave, we understand. But Autumn, I want to give you this chance to share.
I just wanted to share, and I feel like Pam should have just dropped the mic there, but I wanted to share. So I'm hesitant to share this because it's not as good as what just Pam just said. But I do want to add, there was an article that just came out in the Atlantic, and it's called, this resonated as our last call, "Our Kids Are Not Broken." And I'll put the quote in it, but one of the quotes in it said, "When students feel empowered, they care more and work harder." So next time you hear the phrase learning loss, think about whether we really want to define our students by their deficits instead of their potential. And then I think that applies for the work we're doing here, and all the work was student focused and how we're really trying to empower our students, and they're not broken, and the learning is not lost. And the learning on us has not been lost this year.
Autumn, I think Pam would agree. That was a great follow-up to her last comments. It's a great way to close us out because you brought us back to the kids. So thank you so much for doing that. Fairfax, I want to thank you all for sharing your work. Henrico, yours. Richmond, yours. We've shared the links. We can make sure they're shared again. You can reach out to your VaLIN coach or any of us if you need those again. And, you know, as a coach, Craig, I think you'd agree. I know Julie was on, Amos is here. Yeah, this has been an amazing year. Both years of VaLIN have been. I think 3.0 is going to be even more special. So thank you all for your time. And I look forward to seeing you in some of these sessions.
Lori?
Yes, ma'am.
One last plug. If you're interested in this prototyping of a Virginia assessment collaborative, Lori and Annie are going to be our project managers. Please reach out to either Lori or Annie if you want to know more, because we're going to rev it up and really try to move towards a different assessment model for the state of Virginia.
Thanks for that plug, Pam. Yeah, Annie and I are here for you if you'd like to do that. Some of you are already in. We're going to say goodbye for now. Craig, did that work for you?
Yep, sounds good.
All right, folks, I'll save the chat and see you all soon in a new session. Bye.